Good evening for another After Dark episode. Okay, so this fella over here, his name is Alexander Grace. He's an old guard of the internet. He's been doing stuff for fellas for a very long time. I think he started as a pickup artist and then he sort of moved on to a more like figuring out how females work. And he's about to make an hilarious blunder, so I want to talk about it. The premise of this video is that ladies essentially, when they start arguing with fellas, they start shouting and becoming more and more and more emotional, and the fellas will remain calm or try to remain calm in order to control the situation and solve the actual problem. And I have a comment about this. Let's see what he has to say.
But from where I'm sitting and looked at this as rationally as I can I say that the female method makes no sense. Emotional intensity does not resolve conflict. It amplifies it. I understand in the short term, it might give her that feeling of connection, and that's what she's seeking. But zoom out in the long term, always resolving arguments by emotionally escalating them is going to destroy any sense of trust or respect or safety. I don't need to tell you this. You're a man. You know that this is not going to work. That's why you try and stay calm. And it seems so
reasonable, but fundamentally incorrect. Now, let us put my credentials forward and my bias forward, as well as my blindfolds forward. So I have been married to my wife for, I think, 18, 19 years, whatever. She knows the number. It's approaching 20. We've always been married. We have never talked about separation. We have never divorced. None of that happened. Well, neither of us are divorced before. We got married when we were young. Well, youngish at least. I must have been, 20, 21 or something. And she would have been 1 year younger than me because she's 1 year younger than me now. So we have 5 children together. We've moved a bunch of different countries, done a bunch of different things. Now, this of course doesn't mean that we haven't had arguments, right? Now, what Grace is saying is that you as a man know that this behavior by the woman doesn't work and so on and so forth. It is fundamentally true, I think, that women, generally speaking, whenever they feel slighted or upset, they're going to start essentially lashing out. Right? This is the kind of thing you learn with your first girlfriend type of thing. And you go like, why in the heck she's going so mental about things that don't matter? Like, for example, I didn't respond to her text yesterday or something stupid like that. Right? Because they're not very bright, really, when it comes to these things. Women do basically weave their own drama inside their own heads about stuff that has happened. Say, for example, you haven't responded yesterday to a message or a call that she has given you. You simply fell asleep after, I don't know, you were out for work or something. You fell asleep wherever you are, and you forgot to respond, right? And then she'll go mental. What this indicates usually is a fundamental lack of trust coming on her part. And it is your job as a man to redefine the concept of trust and explain it to her in a way that she will understand, which is essentially impossible. What you need to end up doing is repeating the concept of trust about a bazillion times, the way you would when you're teaching a baby how to speak or something like that. And eventually it kind of potentially sinks in. So just to clarify, the concept of trust works as follows. Trust is given by default as a starting position of any relationship. In other words, trust cannot be earned contrary to popular belief. Trust must be given and can be lost. Can be potentially re-earned, fair enough, right? But the moment in which you marry somebody, you essentially entrust in them your entire life pretty much, right? Because it's an endless contract, or should be. Set aside the fact that marriage doesn't mean anything nowadays, though I suppose we can't set it aside, but I'm working with my biases here. Okay, now, suppose that your wife is going mental to you and start to shout at you and that sort of stuff. I am not sure I understand how it makes any sense for you to remain calm. Now, you will remain calm in the modern world because if you get angry, she potentially has grounds to she has grounds to potentially accuse you of something horrible, falsely of course, or something like that, whatever. But let's pretend that this isn't the case, just to understand, in my opinion, how it is correct to behave. as a man, compared to a woman, you are most likely taller, most likely bigger, most likely stronger, most likely fiercer. Okay? Instinctively, she knows this. Whenever she starts attacking you, berating you, whatever it is, remaining calm allows her to continue. That is not an acceptable behavior. Just like when educating a child, it is not an acceptable behavior to allow your child to walk all over you. Say, for example, you make a deal with a child, if you eat these peas, I'm going to give you the ice cream, and then the child refuses to eat the peas, but still wants the ice cream, and then the mother regularly will cave and give him the ice cream. That's where you as a father say no, and become very firm and very, very, very inflexible. Okay? Right. So if you consider this particular scenario, suppose that your wife is shouting at you in that typical emotional fashion. What you need to do, and this may end in tragedy, but c'est la vie, is you need to get as angry as is necessary. Okay? So you need to control your temper, of course. You're an intelligent individual as a man. Right? But you you cannot let it go. This behavior cannot slide. You're bigger, stronger, and fiercer, which means you're very scary. Just like with your children. It's very easy to do with your children because children are so small that anything scares them until they become adolescents, and then it becomes a different ballgame, particularly with males, as I'm starting to find out. But with your female, presumably, wife, modern day, you are you ought to get angry. Because if you just, I think it's called stonewalling, if you essentially remain there stoically taking it, it's the wrong incentive. It's the wrong machinery, right? Are you angry? If the answer is yes, then become angry. Behave in a way that is consistent with your personal current situation. That will help you achieve a bunch of possible outcomes, including the worst one of them all, which is, she files for divorce or something like that. That has never happened to me, so I don't know. But I suspect, by the way, that females respect a man who will stand up for himself, particularly to them. That's when they lose the respect for you, because they go, I can walk all over him, so I will. And therefore, I don't respect him. But if I can't walk all over him, that's very different, right? So, that's the worst possible case scenario. Something tragic happens to your relationship. Okay, fine. Probably better that it happened now than any other time. But suppose that things go in a more normal fashion. So what you need to do is you essentially take the role that the feminists so like, the role of the patriarch. What does that mean? You become her father. Whenever women behave like that, they're effectively behaving like freaking toddlers, right? And it's your job to stand up to that and say, I'm not going to accept your toddler behavior. You're going to think your way through this, or you're going to shut up. These are your two options, and I'm not giving you any others. Right? How does that work? Well, she starts shouting at you, and you shout right back, looking very, very, very serious, very stern. Right? No swear words if you can help it. They never help. Okay? And you stop the behavior. That's the first step. Just like with a child. You get the subject, the individual, to stop the behavior. Now, she's an adult and she's a female, and in the modern days, she might not want to stop. She might not stop at all, ever. She might escalate to a point that is absolutely ridiculous. At which point you just restrain her. You just hold the hands still if she starts swinging, because that's what they usually, like the idiots among them do. There's gradations, right? My wife has never had the goal to raise her hands towards me. That would have been absolutely ridiculous, right? Neither have I, because that's the intelligent way to behave. But if an argument comes up and you think you've been slighted and you think you're wrong, you, as a proper adult, as a male, as a father, are going to process the information as fast as you can inside your head, and then react in a way that it is proportional to whatever is coming your way, with the following goal. Goal number 1, stop the behavior. Goal number 2, Determine if now is the time to in fact address the underlying grievance. Right? Say, for example, the thing that I said before about trust. Let's say that she's doing this to you because you didn't respond to a text of hers yesterday night, right? You need to remind her, as I said about 1,000,000 times, how trust works. Like, when have I ever given you any reason, right, to doubt my integrity or my word, right? If I said to you I was at work and then I fell asleep and then I woke up later and then I said I forgot to call you, whatever, I call you every damn evening, right? What's the issue? Will you relax? Okay? Now, perhaps other people have tried this. Perhaps this hasn't worked for them. And like I said, I operate from my own bias and my own experience. I'm sorry if that's the case. But I think that our friend Alexander here is caught in a loop. Because what's going on is he's saying, you remain calm because this is the right thing to do. The woman isn't trying to resolve the argument. This is essentially a correct analysis. And then he stops there. He doesn't really know what to do. Well, he's wrong. What you do is you stand up for yourself. If then everything goes to hell in a handbasket with C'est la vie, right? You still stand up for yourself. This is the right answer almost every time, right? You are not going to tolerate attacks, berating, if they are unjustified. But even if they're justified, there needs to be some degree of intelligence to all of this. So, de-escalate by getting as angry as necessary. Remain outside of the world of violence. That's a very good idea for many reasons. You're way stronger than this woman, okay? If she starts swinging, you stop her. Simple as that. And then number 3, you resolve the underlying issue by figuring it out. And you lead the conversation as the man. I have used this formula for 20 years and it has never once failed me. So, I do not know if Alexander Grace is married. I believe he might be. I do not know if he's got children. He might or might not have. I don't know. But he is catastrophically wrong from this perspective. Just like when you raise children, everybody who argues that you should never get angry at your children or anything like that is either an idiot or delusional. Both are fine to lead to the same catastrophic result of spoiled children. Right? Children will push your buttons. They will consistently do things you don't want them to do. And it is your job to stop them with firmness and usually accords, contracts, and make them learn how to respect them. You will create a better world that way. When you marry a woman, the marriage has just begun. It's not over. You're going to be educating yourself and maturing and improving, hopefully, if you're a reasonable and introspective man. And then you're also going to have to act as the father that she now doesn't have. You are the father now of the house. Welcome to the patriarchy, the winning strategy. Goodbye.